I find it amazing that what was meant as an offhand joke in a horror B movie from 1988 somehow predicted the future.
She's alive.
It's a guy.
Not anymore. He went into a psycho ward a couple years ago. And while he was there, the doctors gave him a sex change, and our parents' taxes paid for it.
Kamala was the first to help pay for a prisoner's sex change.
The power that I had, I used it in a way that was about pushing for the movement, frankly, and the agenda.
It goes to show you how far Western culture, specifically American culture, has changed in that time. I feel like the recent US presidential election was the culmination of a relatively short but intense period of social engineering, gaslighting, and radical deconstruction. It was a rejection of an increasingly out-of-touch woke narrative that's been pushed by ideologues to enact rapid societal change upon a mostly unwilling population, with the fakest, most entitled, and oblivious human beings in the vanguard, Hollywood celebrities.
As a celebrity, I know all about stuff, like science and politics. So trust me when I tell you who you should vote for.
In recent years, celebrities have largely changed from being professional entertainers to activists. Not all, but many. And they and the companies they work for have played increasingly larger roles in the political landscape, in an arena that was once left to the politicians to sort out. Hell, George Clooney even helped shift the political landscape in the latest election, which totally upended the presidential race and... Oh, sorry, I'm getting a call.
Hi, you guys. Hi, Avengers.
What?
Thanks
Hey,
for
Scarlett.
jumping on the call.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Down with democracy.
Down with democracy.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I am down with democracy.
Hey, look what happened. Is this crazy?
The forced change in cultural norms that went into high gear after Donald Trump was elected president in 2016, seemingly as a response to him and what he supposedly represented as a kind of take that, amplified the leftist agenda bubbling under the surface and brought us such gems as a black Anne Boleyn, a black Achilles, a black Cleopatra, who was of Greek lineage from a line so inbred it could rival the Habsburgs. We actually know quite a bit about her, more than someone's gran told them anyway.
I remember my grandmother saying to me, I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra was black.
And so on, in bouts of historical revisionism, which had once been called cultural appropriation, but was now quite acceptable in this new era of identity politics and equity so long as the race swapping went one way and not the other. A patently absurd idea, but one that could earn you cancellation from social media and even your job if you deigned to speak out against it. If these had gone the other way, they would have been considered some of the worst instances of cultural vandalism in modern history. This wasn't just restricted to entertainment, mind you. It came smashing into all aspects of Western culture, tearing down statues, changing the way we speak, altering hiring practices in what had once been considered blatantly racist and sexist ways, all in an attempt to right the wrongs of the past by doing more wrong. People were categorized by their immutable characteristics, and certain voices were amplified, while others of a particularly vilified demographic, white males, were shut down, criticized, and mocked. Giant corporations jumped on the trend in an effort to seem virtuous.
You have to force behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race, you're going to be impacted.
And big tech companies anointed themselves the arbiters of truth at the behest of government officials, and took it upon themselves to judge what could be said and who could say it. The pandemic blew this trend up to unbelievable proportions, and an unprecedented level of control was exerted upon the common people by multi-billion-dollar corporations and government lackeys. If I hadn't lived through it all, I wouldn't have believed it. It sounds like an opener to a post-apocalyptic sci-fi novel or something, but that's what happened. To be fair, I observed all of this playing out from afar. I'm not American, I haven't lived in North America for about 10 years, and I'm not white. But damn, it was hard for me to ignore how things were changing all over the place, driven by what was happening in the US. Suddenly the media were calling you racist or sexist for not liking a film about laser swords and space wizards. The way that fandoms were vilified and people's intentions were twisted on their head was sickening to see. I hated The Last Jedi, but that's because it's a shit movie, not because I'm an incel scared of strong women or something. The gaslighting was through the roof, and more often than not, it harmed the product the company was selling. It turns out that insulting a large proportion of your audience isn't the smartest thing to do. And yet these companies just kept on doing it, going so far as to produce movies and shows as a means to insult the very fans that made the property so beloved in the first place, and had kept the idea alive with their hard-earned money and devotion.
I think what happened after the first Joker was there was a lot of talk ooh, this was loved by incels. This was loved by the wrong kinds of people, and this sent the wrong kinds of male rage, nihilism, all these think pieces.
Right.
And then I think, what if we went the other way, and now they have Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga tap dancing to a point where it's insane.
Othering and tribalism is how you motivate people to go to war with one another, not how you settle differences between them. A concept that a bunch of third graders in 1968 were able to grasp through a simple experiment run by Jane Elliott.
It might be interesting to judge people today by the color of their eyes. Would you like to try this? Yeah! The brown-eyed people do not get to use the drinking fountain. You'll have to use the paper cups. You brown-eyed people are not to play with the blue-eyed people on the playground. You ready, Laurie? Brown-eyed. She's a brown-eyed. What happened at recess? Were two of you boys fighting?
Russell called me names and I hit him in the gut.
What did he call you?
Brown eyes.
I watched what had been marvelous, cooperative, wonderful, thoughtful children turn into nasty, vicious, discriminating little third graders in a space of 15 minutes.
Let's be clear what's happening in this country. It's Nazism. Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
The experiment reverses the next day, with the brown-eyed kids being praised and the blue-eyed ones being discriminated against. It's a good watch, and I'd recommend checking it out. I'll link it in the description. But it's completely insane to me that a group of children in the 60s were able to understand the concept that dividing people up into groups based on physical characteristics and then demonizing them was a bad idea. But so much of political and corporate America, the media, entertainment, etc., over the last 8 years or so, not only wasn't able to figure that out, but bought into the idea wholesale and promoted it with gusto. I haven't bought a Gillette product since that stupid Boys Will Be Boys commercial aired.
Boys will be boys.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
Not because I'm a hardcore right-winger, far from it, but because I don't like to be talked down to or lectured by companies. Nobody does, especially by companies and out-of-touch elites who represent some of the most reprehensible industries and practices out there, but pretend otherwise.
Well, you say you're woke, but the companies you work for, I mean, unbelievable. Apple, Amazon, Disney. If ISIS started a streaming service, you'd call your agent, wouldn't you?
People can see through fakeness and hypocrisy, no matter how much the mainstream mouthpieces lie and propagandize. And there are few things faker than an actor with an inflated sense of self-worth.
You know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
Which brings us to the 2024 presidential election, one which is watched all around the world. The thing that strikes me and many others is that this election will go down as the moment that celebrities lost their sway and credibility with a majority of people, and were exposed for their hypocrisy, greed, and lack of moral character. Despite Kamala Harris's campaign parading a bevy of celebrities around like some kind of circus performers, badly reading teleprompters and humiliating themselves for cash,
now, I took my time writing this speech, so I'm gonna make sure I deliver it right.
and gaining the endorsements of many others within the Hollywood bubble, the impact they had on the election was next to nil. The whole thing felt gross and fake, because it was. It felt perverse in the worst sense of the word, that celebrities who hadn't bothered to warn us about P. Diddy were standing up on stage and telling American citizens what to think and who to vote for. Just tone deaf in the extreme.
How many people on the Diddy party list that are supporting Kamala? Too?
Yeah, seriously, it's like insane.
Publicly, openly, all in.
J-Lo was like his ex-girlfriend, and it's like now deciding she's like warning people against Trump. I'm like, well, wait a second. So how many people did she warn against Diddy?
Right.
Oh, 0. Okay.
And it turns out that a lot of those people showed up for paychecks rather than supporting the candidate who was supposed to defeat literally Hitler, which is something you would have thought they'd be happy to volunteer for.
I can't get over these numbers. $10 million for Beyonce to step up and back Kamala Harris publicly. $5 million for Megan Thee Stallion. $3 million for Lizzo. $1.8 million for Eminem. I mean, is that normally how it goes? You spend $20 million, you get yourself in debt to try to get a bunch of rich celebrities on stage? I'd never seen that. Maybe I'm ignorant of the fact, but wow.
The outsized sense of self-worth that these celebrities had just oozed of elitist hubris. I'm not sure if those people realized, or realize even now, just how stupid and disconnected they look. I like actors just fine. I know there are a lot of down-to-earth ones, but at some point, you have to know your limitations and what people like you for. And political commentary from paid pretenders is not it. Well, it seems that a lot of people were tired with how things were going, and the shift toward Trump and the cohort he had gathered from both sides of the political spectrum was loud and clear. Not only did he win the electoral vote, but the popular vote as well.
Got 312 electoral college votes. Ladies and gentlemen, excuse my language, that is an ass whipping.
Obviously, there was more that contributed to the swing, like inflation and immigration, but I'm willing to bet that the woke hellscape people have been subjected to over the last several years certainly helped out, and the entertainment industry has been one of the biggest perpetrators of that. It's gotten to a point where I grit my teeth every time a new project in a beloved franchise of mine is announced. Whereas I once may have been excited to see how a book or comic series I liked was brought to life on the big screen, now I just want these Hollywood hacks to leave them alone. Wheel of Time, Willow, and Rings of Power have almost made me swear off fantasy shows entirely, with their overemphasis on woke ideology and shoddy storytelling. And they've done horribly too. Wheel of Time has terrible Nielsen ratings, potentially leading to a cancellation. Willow was deleted out of existence, and Rings of Power keeps limping along because of an insane deal Amazon made because Jeff Bezos wanted his own version of Game of Thrones, but Tolkien fans have roundly rejected it. I'll throw The Witcher in there too, which lost its lead actor because he couldn't stand how badly the source material was being treated. Something all these shows suffer from. Props for that, Henry. And just look at what Star Wars has become. The latest entry was The Acolyte, a super woke and diverse show about lesbian space witches, which was so bad that the second season was cancelled not long after the first season wrapped up. But did anyone learn from it? Did that stop the studios from pumping out more of this crap or stop brain-dead celebrities from jawing off? Well, not yet. Kathleen Kennedy is still out there, announcing new Star Wars projects into the ether that are just as likely to get cancelled before they ever see the light of day. I'm not sure when Disney shareholders are going to wake up to this nonsense, but it hasn't happened yet. And this goes for both sides. I don't want to hear a celebrity telling me their political views, let alone telling people who they should vote for. Just stay the hell out of it. This kind of brainless activism has only damaged your brand, your personal one, and every project you're attached to. Do you want me to hate the Avengers movies? It all rings so hollow and people can see it. It's pathetic. I tried my best to separate the art from the artist, but boy, watching Star Wars was a lot more fun before Mark Hamill told me I was sexist. And I had a lot more love for actors and entertainers when they acted and entertained and kept their mouths shut about politics. And it seems I'm not the only one. How will this monumental shift in the American political landscape affect future projects from Hollywood and the seemingly clueless elite? Surely a loud and clear message has been sent.
Liberals branded anyone protesting as heartless and racist. They missed a massive shift in American public opinion in just a few years.
Does this mean a return to testosterone-packed action movies with muscular leading men and buxom beauties of the 80s and 90s? Is it a rejection of the woke neo-Puritanism that's just as stifling as the Bible-thumping variety, only from a different angle? Well, probably not. At least not for a while. There have certainly been some good signs, even before the election, with many companies abandoning discriminatory DEI policies in favor of merit-based operations, which just makes sense, to be honest. And even Disney-owned ABC has seen the writing on the wall, admonishing Sunny Hostin on The View and forcing her to read a legal note over the statements she'd just made.
You have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented.
You can tell she's loving that. And there have been a host of movies and TV series that have emphasized good storytelling and entertainment above social engineering. Notably movies like Top Gun Maverick and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. In the Halloween season, a bunch of excellent horror movies like Oddity, Speak No Evil, and The Substance were released, which, when they did social commentary, did it the right way, in my opinion. They made that commentary part of the world and the story they were telling, and so it made sense. No one turned to look at the camera and shout, "Bigot."
Is that another word for Trump?
Hey, look what happened. Is this crazy?
Comic-related entries like Deadpool and Wolverine and the Penguin, and more rugged tales like Yellowstone and Tulsa King, have also made a solid return to good storytelling. There's definitely hope for a return to entertainment whose primary goal is to entertain, messaging or not. But with articles like these coming out of The Hollywood Reporter, or late-night hosts continuing to alienate more than half the voting public,
because Trump gave another extremely important job to MAGA minion and Cruella de Village idiot, Tulsi Gabbard. When I think Tulsi Gabbard, the word intelligence is not the first one that comes to mind.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for healthcare, for our climate, for science, for NATO, for the truth and democracy and decency.
along with a healthy dose of ignorance and denial.
But I really, really wish Taylor Swift had done an event with Vice President Harris in Pennsylvania 2 months ago. Okay, I just had to say that because she is so powerful, and it's not fair that the weight of the world should be on a pop star's shoulders. I just did not realize how racist and misogynistic America still is.
You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg.
And a few companies that are behind the curve. If you guessed that was a car commercial, you've got some serious skills. I think it'll be a while before that becomes the norm. And don't forget, a lot of projects were greenlit and under development as we speak that were created under the woke umbrella. I mean, we have a new Captain America coming up who's been race-swapped by the Falcon, who is a cool character in his own right, in a painfully obvious attempt to push identity politics as he goes up against the US president? Ugh. As long as people think of things like the Oscars as a weapon to combat some sort of perceived injustice, this woke mind virus will linger on and continue to devalue the human experience. The individual experience, rather than the group or collective experience, that we all crave, empathize with, and ultimately desire. No one should ever be put in a metaphorical box because of the way they were born.
The problem is much deeper than simply one about nouns and pronouns. The entire focus on identity has morphed into something deeply illiberal, judging people by the color of their skin rather than the content of their character.
The group that's telling you that you should think a certain way or deserve certain things because of some characteristic beyond your control is clearly not the group that has your best interests in mind. Celebrities might want to think about that before cashing those checks and swallowing the Kool-Aid in the name of the party and peer pressure. It's clear that a majority of Americans have. Now might be the time for a little introspection. And give us some good movies while you're at it.
She combined several trends of thought here. Black, woman.
That's not a candidate. Those are, that's identity politics. That's one of the Democrats'
those are elements.
He tasks me. He tasks me, and I shall have him.